Alrighty guys, in this video we're going to talk about the cloning and healing stamp tools inside of Photoshop so that you can remove or add different things to your image. So in this first picture that we're going to look at, that we did already look at in class, we have our little picture on a string, and we just want to duplicate or clone that image to another part of our image. Now it's really important to make sure we're doing this non-destructively. There is no way to do this with a mask. However, we do want to just make sure that we are duplicating our original image before we touch any buttons for these techniques. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate my background here, hide my original, and make sure my background copy is the one selected. Now, the clone tools are really neat. They allow you to take one point from one part of your image and duplicate it to another. So what we're going to do is over here, I'm going to just click my clone stamp tool. If I push down and hold, there's also a pattern stamp tool. The pattern stamp tool is really cool, although I haven't used it much. It does work really nice, and I recommend at least playing with it once to see if it's something you would like to play with. So I have my clone stamp tool here, and what it wants me to do is before I can just start painting, if I start, it'll be like you can't use this because you haven't put where you want to start painting from. So if I hit OK, remember, we're trying to clone this little thing here with our image somewhere else into our picture. So you can either paint over here or over here. I leave that choice up to you. But we do need to define where we want to start painting from. Now, since we are working on a clothesline here, we do want to pick somewhere close to our clothespin. So if I hold down Alt, Alt is the button that allows you to pick where you're painting from. I recommend finding somewhere that's easy to replicate throughout your image. So for this image, since I want to put my clothespin and picture somewhere else on my clothesline, I want to find somewhere on my clothesline that's close enough to my clothespin so that when I start painting, it's an easy place for me to start from. So I'm going to just click right here on this clothesline, and when I move my cursor away, you'll see it takes that part of the picture with it. So I'm just going to move it and line it up on our string and just start painting. Now this works best if you have a fuzzy brush, but a hard brush isn't fully out of the question. Just keep in mind that when you are doing this, you want the backgrounds to match up as close as possible. So if you have a slightly darker background, you might have to go in and fix this with a different cloning brush. So I'm just going to slowly paint this in, and soon enough I have a fully cloned picture to match the original. But if I zoom in, you'll see that right through here is a bit darker than what I would like. Because I got this nice lighter background, all I'm going to do is I'm going to click somewhere in this little area, make a much smaller brush, and manually paint it in. Now with that smaller brush, it's a lot more noticeable. So I'm making a slightly larger brush. Just going to lightly click, because I don't want to get too much in there. And just slightly add a little bit more to that image. It's a little bit of touch and go. It does take a little bit of work, but it'll have a really nice result. But what if there's a different type of image that we want to do? Something that's not as lined up as this one. So for this, we had our little sheep that we used in class. So what if I want to put this little sheep somewhere lower or further into the grass? So the same thing will apply. I'm going to pick from the foot of my sheep right here. I'm going to make sure I have my background duplicated because I don't want to work on the original. I'm going to hide that original background, make sure I'm on my background copy. I'm going to bring my little sheep over here, and I'm just going to start painting my sheep into the image. Since it is non-aligned, but my background looks pretty similar, I can easily create this image like so, where it looks like maybe there's just two almost exact sheeps in here. I get a little bit of dip here from the grass, but that's easy enough to fix with just by recloning the foot a little higher. And now we've got our nice little sheep in here. Now let's say you wanted to remove a whole swatch of grass, or maybe you have another image that you want to remove a full part of. There's a couple of ways to do that. You can use your Alt tools to slowly paint out a color. I do recommend doing this if your background is all a solid color. So if we wanted to remove our sheep, I could come over here to where there's more grass and slowly cut our sheep back out of our image. Now you will get some weirdness, so you will have to click a couple of times, because if your cursor goes over where there was not paint before you started, it will consider that not painted. Now you do get a little bit of a residue. You might have to go back through with a clone stamp overall, somewhere from darker in the sky, or somewhere nearby to kind of even out those pieces, but overall it'll just still look like your background. But what if there is a certain part of your image that you want to remove? So let's say we have this woman here and we were hired in order to remove some of her blemishes and kind of smooth her skin out. You see this a lot of time with retouching inside of magazines, pictures, things on Instagram, and the like. So we have a couple of options here. We have our spot healing brush. If we click on this little button here, we've got the spot healing brush, and the patch tool, the content aware tool, and red eye tool. Now while I haven't played much with the content aware move tool, what it does is it looks at a background and it will actually pick what parts to move for you. It's quite neat. I recommend playing with it. The red eye tool does exactly what it says. It will remove the red eyes from a picture that you've taken. And the healing spot tool and the healing brush tool and patch tool will fix certain parts of your image. So the spot healing brush tool works really great for smaller image parts. I recommend using a much smaller brush. And all you have to do is lightly paint over any of the blemishes that you see, and it will use the pixel data around it to just remove that image. Now, when you zoom in, if you do get this grid, all you have to do is turn off the extras. That is the pixel grid. Sometimes it gets in the way. And then all you have to do is start painting. However, if you notice, if you paint over something that it doesn't want to fix, it won't fix it. So for the spot healing brush, small blemishes, small zits, small little moles, small freckles are really nice to remove with this tool. However, if you do need to heal something larger, like maybe her mole or some of her wrinkles, you do want to come in with the healing brush tool. And just like the cloning tool, sometimes it will ask you about picking a spot. So I'm going to undo a little bit. I'm going to hold down Alt, and I'm going to click right here on her cheek. And all I have to do is just lightly paint, and it works similar to the cloning tool, where it uses some pixel data with a kind of blend of those two tools to remove blemishes and make her skin look a little younger. Now it's really good for removing moles, wrinkles. It smooths them out. You just want to make sure that you're clicking just where you want to go. Now I have seen people use this tool and others to completely remove people's mouths and eyes, so just be aware that if you are trying to do something grand, it is still possible with these tools. And the more you use them, the more intuitive they will become. So you can see we've already de-aged her quite a bit just on this part of her face. You just want to make sure you're moving in small increments so that it doesn't overthink what it's trying to do. And voila, you have now retouched at least half of your image. So I'm just going to finish retouching this half, and then we'll move on. And there we go. If you were to hold a piece of paper over the other half, they would look like slightly different people. This is why sometimes when you see those videos and they're like, I fixed my acne with this miracle product. So this is sometimes what people do to make it appear that way. Now I'm not saying those things probably don't work, but take everything with a little bit of precaution. Now, let's say we want to remove a larger swatch or a much more complicated swatch of skin. Maybe you've got a tattoo like this young lady does and she needs to remove it before she shows the picture to her grandmother. Who knows? But you've been paid to remove it. So what we're going to do first is, just like before, we're going to duplicate our background, hide our background layer, and then instead of using the spot healing or healing brush tool, we're going to use the patch tool. The patch tool is a very powerful tool. What it does is it allows you to select an area. So let's select this lower part of her tattoo and then merge it and remove the differences between another part of skin. So if we were to move this down to somewhere on her back and select, it will remove the differences so that she has no more tattoo. And we can do the same thing with the next part. If we remove her other part of her tattoo and move it somewhere onto another part of her neck and select there, it will remove that part of that tattoo. And if we do the next part, here, we want to move it somewhere where there is some hair. We click there, Control D, she no longer has that tattoo. Now from here, you do want to take some of those brush tools, the healing spot tool, the healing brush tool, and just lightly make over some of the edges to make it look a little bit more natural. And less like it was removed. And there you are. You have removed someone's tattoo. It's a pretty neat tool. But that's all I have for the cloning and patch tools. I'll see you guys in the next one.